I coach a lot of female entrepreneurs, and what I witness in them, particularly when we're doing somatic work, is that they don't feel safe to express their anger. And so
Yes.
many times the anger turns inward. And that creates all kinds of disturbances in the body. If you just squash it down, it's not really going away. The kind of core moment that really set me on this path was having to get heart surgery at the age of 28 as a result of extreme burnout.
Could you explain what burnout actually is in the body? Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
That's so cool. You give great advice
Thank you.
on emotions. The first post I found was the one where you explain how to deal with anger, and that inspired me a lot because this
Hmm.
is something that I feel for myself is very, very true.
Hmm.
And that's how I used to handle things, but as an amateur, so I have no idea what I'm doing. It just feels right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're trusting your body and what your body knows to do. And I coach a lot of female entrepreneurs. And what I witness in them, particularly when we're doing somatic work, is that they don't feel safe to express their anger. And so
Yes.
many times the anger turns inward. And that creates all kinds of disturbances in the body. It leads to outbursts later down the road, right? In places where you don't actually want that anger to be directed. And so we can really harness the power of our anger and express it and kind of metabolize it in more productive ways. Because if you just squash it down, it's not really going away.
Yes, yes. And I loved how you explained it. And I wanted to learn more about you. I love what you're doing. I love your website. I checked everything out. Like you're a somatic practitioner.
Mhm.
That's a super cool job. And maybe you can tell me and the audience more about it, more about what you do, and more about your path and what led you there.
Sure. So I have a long and circuitous, what's the word? Circuitous? Yeah, circuitous
Yeah.
path. But the kind of core moment that really set me on this path was having to get heart surgery at the age of 28 as a result of extreme burnout. So I was a partner at a very successful hospitality company based in New York City, but with venues all around the world, a lot of nightclubs and hotels. I had a very cool job. I made good money. I got to meet and party with every celebrity. But in that process, I worked myself truly almost to death. I was 28 years old. I went for a routine doctor's visit, and they said, Amanda, you need to go to the cardiologist immediately. Your pulse is completely erratic. And the craziest part is, I didn't know anything was wrong with me. I wasn't feeling run down. I was in such a state of what they call functional freeze, which is where your nervous system is on such high alert that you're just stuck there. And it becomes kind of what you experience as normal. But my heart was working overtime. I never got out of high stimulation mode. And so when I had to get heart surgery, it was like, the first kind of burst of my spiritual awakening, but also when I decided, wow, I really need to learn about this nervous system thing. I was, 28 years old. I went to Ivy League college. I didn't know anything about the nervous system. Now, this was 2012, right? Before Instagram took off, before people were talking about somatics and the nervous system publicly. I really learned it the hard way. And from there, I just started devouring everything I could possibly learn about the nervous system, about trauma, about why we end up pushing ourselves so hard and so far that we ultimately damage our health. And from there, what started off as a personal healing journey and a passion, as it does for many healers, is we realize, oh, wow, I had to suffer through this so that I could bring this wisdom. Um, and this mission to other people because it's so common and unfortunately getting more common in our society.
That's very true. I talk to many people who transform their suffering, what happened to them, into something positive and meaningful for others. Because the other option we have is to be bitter about it and
Right.
to become victims of the situation. So I highly appreciate people like you. I highly appreciate you that you choose to use the uncomfortable thing that happened to you not just to improve your own experience, but also to help other people. Like, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for me, there was such blinders on towards success. New York City life, making it, carving a name for myself. And so the people that I work with generally resonate with both sides of my story. They're very ambitious.
Mhm.
They want to be successful, make a name for themselves, run businesses, have these big careers. But on the inside, they are starting to notice, or perhaps they're in the midst of a burnout. They're realizing, hey, this might not be sustainable. They're not ready to, put their
Yeah.
feet up and become, move to Bali and just, and I
Yeah.
mean, I love those people too. But the people that gravitate towards me are like, Amanda, how do I create this big life that I want for myself without having to push myself to the point where I am basically killing myself in the pursuit of who I want to become.
Yes. Yeah. Could you explain what burnout actually is in the body? What does it feel like, and
Mm.
what's the best explanation for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always encourage people to not necessarily listen to the voice of experts when it comes to a lived experience in their body, because burnout has commonalities across different people, but it actually can manifest very differently in very different types of systems. So, overall, burnout is when your system has been put under too much pressure for too long without enough breaks. And so, for some people, they will experience that first in their physical body. They will experience autoimmune conditions or digestive issues or hair loss, right? Other people will experience it first in terms of their emotional mental health. They become very short with people. They start to lose passion for things that once lit them up. They become very overwhelmed and stressed. Maybe they're crying at the end of the workday, or they develop insomnia. And then there is a third category of person like me, which it's not super uncommon, where we are actually able to push through both the mental and the physical side effects. And it manifests in a much deeper way that generally comes out in some big crisis moment, or where it's gone so far before we even realize that something is wrong, that we end up with sort of this earthquake moment. But there is a quote, Ayanna Van Zandt, she's like an old school Oprah lady, but she says that God throws pebbles and then God throws bricks. Um, Many people are learning to listen to the pebbles, like, oh, my digestion's off. I'm really impatient with my partner. Maybe I'm getting to a point of burnout. And then there's people like me who need to, get heart surgery to realize maybe I shouldn't be working 14-hour days, 7 days a week, but
Yeah, and how can somebody distinguish between, oh, I'm positively stressed and negatively stressed? Because speaking from my own experience, like I've worked for the advertising industry for a very long time, means also like being involved in fashion weeks and stuff, and
yeah.
makeup brands, and yeah, doing a lot of things that would also be very demanding. But I always enjoyed it.
Hmm.
I wouldn't enjoy it right now. So I would
Hmm.
feel stressed about it right now. But at the time when I did it, I really liked it, and it was a lot of stress, and I had to work sometimes 17 hours a day, and it was
Hmm.
all fine. I had colleagues who would go through the same thing, and they would break down. And I did
Yeah.
not understand at that time, like, what is it? Like, do you just not like the job, and that's why? Why is it positive and negative stress for different people?
Yeah, there's a number of factors to consider. And I would say, first of all, no one can sustain that type of work for a really extended period of time over many weeks, many months without some type of burnout moment, whether it's a temporary moment that you can kind of bounce back from, or it's something more severe. So that's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is, and in my work, I weave spirituality with nervous system awareness as well as business strategy. And when we are working in alignment with our purpose, with the reason why we were incarnated, right, for in this existence, there is more intrinsic motivation to keep going, right? Instead of motivation that we have to manufacture through willpower, through grit, through caffeine or drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, you can be doing what your purpose is and push yourself too far. So it's not like, oh, find your purpose, work a million hours and you'll never experience burnout. No, that's not true. And it's actually kind of a dangerous thing to fall into. What I recommend with my clients is that to actually check in with themselves a couple of times a day and on a numerical scale.
Hmm.
How activated, how stressed, how overwhelmed do I feel? And for successful entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, even, people that are working kind of demanding jobs, being at a 6 consistently might actually be normal, right? It might
Hmm.
be where you're a little bit above where you want to be, but if you're getting to an 8 more than, say, like once every 2 weeks or more than 30 minutes twice a week, right? These little bursts of intense stress are not going to be what creates burnout, are not going to be what erodes your system so that you go into kind of a, off the cliff moment, right? It's when that 7, 8 level of stress is sustained over a long period of time. And
Hmm.
so on the days where you do get into that more extreme stress moment, you really want to be mindful of what you're doing the next few days. So, having that moment to moment awareness of your own state and then being really careful to bake in those moments of deep relaxation, deep replenishment, deep recovery. And this is why it is almost impossible to be very driven um, and avoid burnout without having some form of mindfulness practice
Hmm.
that could be meditation, could be something else. But if you're not being mindful, it is very easy for things to snowball before you realize it.
Hmm.
And that's when burnout typically occurs.
And what's the number one thing that most people seem to overlook when it comes to burnout? Maybe an early sign?
Oh, in terms of symptoms, I would probably say an inability to focus. So everyone thinks they have ADHD these days. Many people do. Um, but when we are starting to see our nervous system become over used, I sometimes think about the nervous system as a rubber band, right? It's flexible, it can stretch, but at a certain point, if you stretch it too far, it's like there's no room for it to stretch anymore, right? And this is related to polyvagal theory. We don't have to get into the whole science of it. But if you are finding yourself less able to focus than you typically are, the answer is not, let me drink a coffee, let me lock in. Something that I love to do when I feel myself, oh, why am my mind wandering? Why am I wanting to pick up my phone? I put on headphones, I lay down, I do like a 10-minute, I do shamanic drumming
Ooh,
tracks.
that's
But,
cool.
you could lean into that or a meditation, right? It's not so important what it is. It's giving your system that moment to shut down, replenish. There are studies that say it takes about 5 minutes for the parasympathetic nervous system to be activated. So that's getting out of high activation, getting out of the sympathetic, getting into the rest, the digest, right? And then suddenly it's like the clouds part and your mind is present again. Your eyes can focus, you can drop in. And so if you're finding yourself, I'm so distracted lately, right? It's like, ooh, don't make it that you have something wrong with you. You're probably just putting too much stimulation into a very healthy and very, functional system.
Oh, that's interesting. But does it also mean that people who do have ADHD should practice that even more to slow down?
I have interesting thoughts about ADHD. My
Give
husband,
me.
yeah, my husband has ADHD and he is an entrepreneur and he's really created a life that is in service of the way his mind works instead of trying to make his mind be in service to the way that the world works. And what I mean by that is he will literally take calls while he is shooting hoops on a basketball court. He will take calls while he's like walking around the block. Um, Instead of saying, well, because I have, this type of neurodivergent brain, I'm going to force myself to do X, Y, and Z so that I can function as a neurotypical. I believe my daughter's only 5, but she has some neurodivergent tendencies in the way that she sees the world and the way that she communicates. And my hope for her is that she can also create a life that honors the way her brain is different instead of saying, how can I make my brain that was created this way, that was designed this way, function in a way that wasn't maybe intended? Now, to be clear, not everyone has that luxury, right? Like a lot of people with different forms of neurodivergence or ADHD do have to like sit at a desk and work. And so what I would say is, how can you honor yourself as much as is reasonably possible, which might mean 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, right? Really thinking about not what is maximal, but what is optimal for the way your brain and your attention flows. I don't know if you follow human design. I'm not a huge human design person or astrology person. I'm into all of it. I follow
Hmm.
all of it. What I like about it is it has given us a framework and some names for things that we would have potentially perceived as weaknesses or drawbacks, right? Oh, I'm a projector. I'm not easily distracted. I'm not, lazy. I'm just not a generator. Or I'm not scatterbrained. I don't have trouble prioritizing. I'm just a manifesting generator. I'm supposed to have multiple different projects going on at once. When we honor who we are, how we move through the world, our preferences, and create a life that is more in alignment with that, we will be more successful. We will be happier. Our energy will flow more easily. We were not meant to all conform to anything. I
Hmm.
think conformity and normalization is the biggest curse in society. If we allowed ourselves to be who we are at our core and said, hey, I'm this type of person. I think I need this kind of job, or I'm going to succeed more if I allow myself to go to bed at 1 in the morning and sleep until 11 a.m. and not see that as, subversive or bad in some way. Our lives will be so much better. And it breaks my heart that that so many people judge themselves
Hmm.
and call themselves wrong when really they're just different.
Yeah, they're just different. That's a actually different take too, because from all takes I've ever heard on ADHD, because I would also talk to other coaches who would give the advice that you basically change your brain. So you
Mm.
have this, you have let's say ADHD. I don't want to even call it a condition, but your thought will be unorganized. And what you do is like you stick to certain routines. So over time, you kind of overcome this pattern or this non-existent pattern. So this is a tip that I would hear a lot on ADHD.
Well, most coaches, and I would say most people in general, are helping people function better in society or roles as they currently exist. And I will always tell people when I start working with them, I'm not going to help coach you into something you actually don't want to do. And I'm psychic, so I'm going to know if you actually want to do it or if you just
Yeah.
think that you need to do it because it's the next thing on the totem pole. I just started working with this woman who has some entrepreneurial ideas, but told me that she wanted to look for a full-time job. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Okay.
And I said to her, if you need that full-time job because you are in a financial position where you can't do life without it, then I will absolutely help you find a job as a means to an end so you can live the beautiful life and build the business and quit the job eventually. But if you got a husband and you got savings or you got whatever and you don't actually need that job, I'm not going to help you find it. And I'm not going to encourage you to do it. That's not what my one precious life is here to help people do. Um, and like I said, many people have to figure out how to function at their desk job because our world, our society is
Mhm.
not currently set up for people to always be able to follow their truth and their heart and their passion. Um, Most of the people that I'm working with are in a position to create them shaped lives, right? A life that is shaped like
Good.
them instead of conforming and taking a creative brain and putting in a finance job. I'm not the coach for that. There's someone that will help you get a VP of finance role. But unless that is your heart's true passion, I don't care. It's not me.
That's so interesting. And I will have to rethink so much advice that I personally believed in, but it makes so much
Mm,
sense what you're saying because it is true. Like that was really eye-opening right now that what many coaches do is help people fit in better, like to function in a set up
yeah,
system. And it helps. Like what they teach does help. And I
sure.
think and it even helps me. Like I wouldn't say I have ADHD. I think I'm always kind of in the driving seat, so I can always choose. Do I want to be my thoughts sloppy, sorry, or do I
Hmm.
want to focus? Like I know I'm always in charge because I have this strong sense of self and connection I can return to. But I understand that many people are very lost in their thoughts, and if you want to structure your thoughts, this advice that they give does help, but it keeps the
Yeah,
dysfunctional system actually up. So
yeah,
that's super
yeah.
interesting right now.
Well, so my children, I put them both in an alternative type of school called a Waldorf school that is very much like nature-based, lots of physical activity, lots of working with your hands. Now, if my children were in more traditional schools, there are certain skills and certain behaviors that I would need to train them
Mhm.
to exhibit because they are a requirement of those traditional settings. I chose to put them in a non-traditional setting so I don't have to teach my 5-year-old how to sit down and shut up. But if she was in a traditional school setting, that would be a requirement. That would be a code of conduct that would be non-negotiable. And if she didn't engage in it, she would be labeled as, whatever,
Yeah.
something else. And so it's not the individual's, certainly not the individual's fault. Many of us march in a line in a certain paradigm for a certain portion of our life because we have to. And at a certain point, some of us have the freedom and the privilege, whether, financial or spiritual or whatever, to make choices that are more in alignment with how we really came here to function. And I think that is so beautiful. I don't think that we should create cages for ourselves that don't exist. And at the same time, many cages in our society really do exist. If you're an hourly worker and you need that paycheck to paycheck, you can't say, "Sorry, I'm neurodivergent.
Right.
I need a break every 20 minutes." Right? But if you are the creative founder of your own company and you want to follow your creative brain down a bunch of different pathways, guess what? Create those systems that honor who you are because you can.
Yeah. On the other hand, we have many people who will say, I'm neurodivergent, and this is why I cannot achieve something. That's something that I hear a lot.
Yeah.
And especially if you are labeled as a young kid,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
start identifying with this label. You think you
Yeah.
can't do something that you would actually like to do. So you want to learn an instrument, you want to do something like
Yeah.
everything, what you want to learn requires discipline. And it
Hmm.
seems like many people will use their label not to be disciplined, like not to use
Yeah.
discipline then. And where
Yeah.
is the sweet spot?
Yeah. I think about devotion rather than discipline. And what I experience, and this is not always true, but many times when people are unwilling or seemingly unable to do the things that they need to do, that they know they need to do to bring their life to a better place, it is often the result of low self-worth, which is often the result of early developmental trauma. And, I've been studying trauma for a long time, and there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to what trauma is and how trauma impacts us. But when I speak of developmental trauma, the earliest responses that we received from our caregivers through eye contact, through touch or lack thereof, that said to us either who you are is beautiful and special and amazing and so valid and so loved and so seen, or sit down, shut up, stop doing that, go away, I don't want this, right? So if that's the type of attention that you got early, it is so hard to rebuild a sense of self that says, no, I'm not. I'm good the way I am. I could get better. I could do these things to improve myself. I could certainly work harder or whatever. And I deserve to. And I deserve these things because I'm not fundamentally flawed or fucked or whatever, you know. I had to work through a lot of developmental trauma myself, and now my trauma led me to overperform. Oh, they don't want to see me. They don't like me. They don't care about me. Look how special I am. Look how hard I can work. Look how good of grades I can get. Whereas my husband, and it's not, I don't like to tell all the details of other people's stories or businesses, but he was something of a bad boy, you know, doing things that were dangerous or that were not conducive to him having a good life. And so when we got together, you know, we had two different sides of the same trauma coin. And me seeing him and valuing him and validating him, it took very little time for him to get on a more straight and narrow path towards entrepreneurship and partnership and fatherhood because of the validation of someone seeing you as worthy, as deserving. And so
Wow.
I don't fault people for not doing the things that other people say, oh, they're lazy. Oh, they're just being, you know, they're just wasting their time. They need to get more discipline. They need this, that, the other. And my thought is they need to love themselves more because when you actually feel worthy of improvement, you know, it's like a lot of times you hear when people go on these big loss journeys, it's like they had to lose those first 20 pounds in order to have the, you know, people talk about this with GLP-1s, and I have no opinions about them one way or the other. But what you hear a lot of people say is, once I lost that first 20 pounds, I was motivated because I saw myself again. And I wanted to look in the mirror and I didn't feel like a, you know, like a monster walking into the gym. People need to be seen, they need to be celebrated. It takes so much effort to really withstand anything in this freaking world that we live in right now. And without that fundamental self-worth, the discipline it requires more life force energy than most people have. Because loving yourself refills your cup. It is what gives you the energy to do more and more and more of the things that make your life better and better and better. So self-worth repair is like a part of every single, whether I'm coaching, teaching, et cetera, et cetera. Self-worth repair is like, it's a non-negotiable.
It's like the basis for everything because and it makes so much sense because every time I talk to people who say I know what I want to do but I just can't, or I don't have the willpower, I don't have the discipline, whatever, they don't really have the self-worth. So they don't
Yeah.
think highly of themselves. And I can see
Yeah.
that because I see how they treat others. So I can
Yeah.
already tell they're not really kind to other people. So that's
Hmm.
how they feel about themselves. Okay, I get it. And that's why they can't actually do the thing because they don't feel that they are deserving of the outcome of what
Yeah.
they are going to do.
Yeah. And a lot of other habits like addiction, eating disorders, right? They all stem from that place of low self-worth. I was a very heavy drug user for many years, believe it or not. People don't believe me when I talk about my past, but um, there was a turning point for me when I started studying yoga, where I learned about the concept of prana and life force energy. And there's a lot of teachings in yoga about our physical vessel, right? Being the container for the soul. And I hated my body. I was abusing my body, you know, all those things. But there was a part of me that was like, maybe I don't want to damage my soul, right? And it was like this little flicker of self-worth came online, right? Just a tiny little flicker of self-worth. And over time, just stoking that and stoking that and stoking that and stoking that flame and getting to a point where I would never harm myself in that way. I would never judge others who harm themselves in that way. I am very opposed to any form of bullying, name calling, hatred, etc. It My hairs stand on end when I
Hmm.
hear it. Even if I fundamentally agree with the assessment being given, um, you know, I believe in universality and that, you know,
Yes.
our energy is all shared. And when we are bashing ourselves, we're bashing others. When we're bashing others, we're bashing ourselves. it is the ripple effects are so profound, more profound than I think any human will ever actually be able to conceive
Hmm.
of. But when you believe that, um, the choices become much more clear and much more attainable because you have a reason to care.
Many people do judge themselves or do have a low self-worth, and they perpetuate this low self-worth, this low self-esteem, because they judge themselves for the feelings that they have,
Yeah.
for uncomfortable emotions or bad emotions, however you want to
Mm-hmm.
call them. And you're talking about rage or like anger
Mm-hmm.
and how people are suppressing it. And I think they suppress this because they judge the actual emotion.
Yeah.
What's a better way to deal with it?
I mean, the way that I deal with it and a way that I find resonates with a lot of people, because I try to make sure everything that I do and say works. Like,
Mhm.
not does it sound the smartest? Is it like the most research? But like, what have I actually seen work for myself and work for clients? And so I have children, as I mentioned, and I can think of my child's face expressing every emotion that I feel that I would judge myself for, or suppress, or ignore, or scream about, right? And I can see sadness. Oh, it's so sweet. I can see jealousy. Oh, I can see I'm left out. I can see I'm so angry, right? I can see my a 4 or 5 year old face experiencing these emotions in a way that is so innocent and so raw and so human. And so this is why like inner child work is so powerful because when we can realize that any emotion we are feeling there is not a single emotion that a human experiences that should be judged. Now, what you do with that emotion, how you choose to express that emotion or channel that emotion, that's where the kind of adult filter needs to come in, right? I can feel just as angry as my 4 year old, but I can't throw myself on the ground and throw a tantrum. I can't bite somebody, right? Like, I mean, right?
You
I mean,
can,
I could,
but
right? Um, and so if I can have the combin which is very hard to do, right? But if I can bring the combination of the compassion that I would have for a toddler experiencing that emotion with the emotional regulation and maturity of an adult choosing how to channel that emotion, that's where like emotional mastery comes into play, right? Ellie Wiesel had a quote that is like, the space between stimulus and response is like where all of our power lies, right? We live in a society that is so reactive, right? They did this, I'm doing that. Boom, punch, mean
yeah.
tweet, hateful comment. Um, when we are super conscious of how things live in our body and our system, and we can track how our energy is flowing, we get to decide, can I do anything about this right now? Or do I need a day? Do I need an hour? Do I need to go process? And that's a lot of the advice that I give to my clients, which is if you are feeling an emotion that is overwhelming, it's there. You cannot deny it. You cannot gaslight yourself out of it. And you cannot push it down. What you can do is increase the length of time between the stimulus or the nervous system reaction and the actual response so that you can do so in a way that you're proud of. Like if you're feeling really impatient with a coworker or a partner, you can literally say, I need a moment. Walk away, take your time, come back. I want to express why this felt so intense to me in a way that will land instead of you're a piece of shit, da, 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 right? Like we have the capacity to do this. I'm not saying it's easy, but we all possess a capacity to do it. And, people spend so much time and energy working on like, personal finance and like, becoming a bodybuilder or like winning video games. Okay. Guess what? This is such a more valuable skill to master than like becoming the best at Madden in 2025 or whatever game or activity you're engaged in. And so I do think that the work of this next era is emotional maturity,
Hmm.
compassionate inquiry. Because if it's not, it's World War III, and we that might already be, happening. So,
Yeah, yeah, I just published a bunch of content about that because I was so confused that people would bring up empathy a lot in different contexts and say it's a bad thing, or they would
mhm.
judge it. And I think this whole judgment comes from the idea that every emotion requires a reaction. Means if I'm empathetic towards somebody or a situation, or actually you can just have empathy for others, right? So yeah. So let's say you have empathy, that it also means that you have to react to it because you are
Yeah.
feeling a feeling, whether it's your own or the feeling of somebody else. And it seems to be there seems to be the idea out there that just because you feel something, you also automatically have to act on it.
Yeah. I would just say, there is a perception also that empathy makes you weak. That if you empathize for someone, then you automatically enable them, or that you're somehow indebted to them or beholden to them, right? With everything going on in the world right now, people feel fundamentally unsafe, right? Whether it's financially, whether it's politically, whether it's literal, like fear of gun violence, et cetera, et cetera. In general, more people are feeling more unsafe than, at least in my lifetime, right? I'm sure there were other times in history where it felt this kind of volatile. When a nervous system is in a state of unsafety, we are the most susceptible to all human flaws. When we feel safe and secure, when we're in our ventral vagal state, right? We can withstand things. We're not going to like flick off the person in traffic. We're not going to scream at the customer service lady. We're going to be like, you know what? I can handle this. I don't need to freak out about this. I don't need to believe the propaganda. I don't need to, join the cult or whatever. When I'm safe, I can make choices that come from an empowered place. When I am in an unsafe place, I want to make whatever the choice is that's going to get me back to safety. And if that means uh, getting rid of marginalized groups, if that means pointing the finger at, whoever it is, this time immigrants, trans people, et cetera, if that means becoming hyper masculine or traditional feminine or whatever it is, people are just rushing towards safety. And so we can create internal safety through nervous system work, through faith-based practices, so that we aren't so susceptible. And people think empathy is weak. Having the capacity to care about others makes you the most powerful. It is the most, it is to me the sign of someone who's really done their work. Because the most fragile person, it's me, 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 me. I got to protect myself. If I can't worry about myself, I can't share. I don't have enough to go around. If you've got enough to go around energetically that you can actually care about other people, like you are a very energetically powerful person.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, I just feel that I can't resist empathy. Like, I feel like it's there. Okay, now I could just pretend it's not there. That would be the
Hmm.
choice. I could just pretend that there's something wrong with it or tell myself a story that victimizes someone. So then I
Hmm.
don't feel it. Just the
Yeah,
question is, am I strong enough? Am I powerful enough to have the empathy and to have contradictory other feelings, for example? Or do I
yeah,
feel different things at the same time? And are there different narratives in my head at the same time? Because I also can't escape every narrative, of course.
of
So
course.
can I just be a space for all of it, like for all the stories, all the emotions, and
Hmm.
just be there without blaming anyone, without lashing out, without being mean or cruel, and just having that without any
Yeah.
further reaction. And I think that's possible.
Yeah. And I would just add that it requires slowing down. And our society moves so quick. I worked in an era before you really worked on your cell phone, right? I graduated college in 2006. And now there is this kind of necessity of being always on. And if someone doesn't respond to you, it's like they left you on red, right? Like we have this like urgency culture. And the same thing with cultural events and cultural narratives. If I don't respond right away, I'm going to get canceled. If I don't respond perfectly, I'm this. I have to, and so I just wrote a piece about it was called Maintaining Humanity in the Era of Rage Bait. And the kind of events, I don't know when this is going to go live, but this past week was when Charlie Kirk was murdered at an event, and there was lots of uproar both on all sides. I don't even like to label people right and left because there was
Mhm.
uproar on all sides. And I had to sit with what I was witnessing, what I was experiencing, what I was feeling for a good 5 days before I felt that I knew what I wanted to say that passed through the lens of is it true? Is it necessary? And is it helpful? Right? You may have heard these three questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it helpful? Right? And if it's not all three of those things, I'm not going to say anything. Um, because I don't want to be a person who adds to the chaos, who adds to the noise. Now, if I feel there's something, and I like always wish someone would have just said what I wanted to say so I don't have to talk about it. I'm like,
Mhm.
I just want to stay in my lane. But when I feel that there is something missing from the way that people are perceiving things, then it is actually necessary for me as a spiritual teacher and leader to put forth what I see as the most useful expression of my own response. And I think the problem is we've gotten so used to commenting about everything, and we're not slowing down to think, because I don't have to share every thought that's in my head. Not every thought that goes through my head is saintly, right? Of course, I'm a human, right?
Right.
Um, Sometimes the empathy that I feel is mixed with complicated thoughts around why do I feel more empathy for this group of people than this group of people? Ooh, I need to sit with that. I need to sit with my own biases. Why do I feel called to comment on this person and not that person? I need to sit with that and question my own biases, right? It's the sitting and the questioning that we as a society are not doing enough of. So, with my work, I am really insistent upon providing people with introspection prompts, even more than like coaching tips. Because at the end of the day, I don't ever want to take anyone's autonomy away. If I've taken your autonomy away, I've made you worse as a result of our coaching.
Yeah.
If what you take away from our time together is, gosh, Amanda really knows what to do. I have failed,
Yeah.
right? I want to give you access to what I see so that you can inquire within and become a master of your own process. And not you don't need me anymore. Like that's the goal, right? That's
Mhm.
always the goal.
That's fantastic. I think that makes you one of the best coaches I've ever listened to. Wow.
It's interesting because my primary like income driver, what I do professionally is I coach, but I label myself first and foremost as a spiritual teacher,
Hmm.
because that's really what I do. The difference is that I don't view spirituality as a doctrinal set of beliefs or practices. I view it as an eternal conversation that is happening constantly between us and our creator. And our creator, whoever that is for you, universe, God, whomever, is creating us with the hopes that we will utilize the fullness of our life force capacity that we have been given in the ways that are the most useful to us and to others. And so, from my perspective, if I can unleash in you the belief that that is true, first of all, that you were put here for a reason, that you do have the capacity to do it, and that somebody or something up there is cheering for you and hoping that you also achieve what you came here to do, then all that's really left from there is a little bit of strategy and a lot of faith, right? Because nobody's path is easy.
Hmm.
Nobody's path is not fraught with contradictions and challenges and obstacles. And so it's in those moments where you might need someone to bring you back, bring you back. Hey, you know what you believe, you
Mm-hmm.
know who you are. Don't lose faith. Don't lose faith. Don't lose faith. And the spiritual practices and somatic work, they are all just tools to bring us back into that conversation. Like when I'm at my best, nobody matters except for me and creator. We're just in conversation, in conversation, in conversation. And it sounds crazy, but like that is what gives me the information
Mm-hmm.
about business strategy or how to help somebody or what to say, right? So as much as I use this gift or this conversation to be a coach, that's just the current like container that it's in. It could be in any container. It's like just conversations with God, you
Yeah,
know?
yes. Oh, that reminds me of a really good book, actually, Conversations with God by
Oh
Neil Donald
yeah.
Walsh. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
good
Yeah.
one.
We're
Also,
all saying the same thing, all
yes.
when you really zoom out to the greatest spiritual teachers, everyone is saying the same thing. I am not here to put wisdom in a container and brand it in some very, trademarked way, because that's a lie. And I'm not here to tell lies. I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
be in integrity and
Right.
hopefully bring people to whatever forms of wisdom resonate with them, because that's what's going to change your life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You also mentioned that you are psychic.
Yeah.
What abilities do you have?
Yeah, I consider myself claircognizant, and this is something that has been like a kind of a in the most recent 2 years, like something that I've kind of come out of the closet and said publicly. It's been something that I've known probably my whole life, but for sure since high school. And then in my coaching work, it's something that is reflected back to me over and over and over again. And when I assign homework to my clients, what I really do is I channel their energy and I understand what from my session with them didn't land because of, and I'm pointing because I can feel it in the body, right? A
Mm-hmm.
trauma or a doubt in the back of their mind. What is it that made this particular assignment feel fraught or feel impossible? And so I'll give them these introspection prompts and they're like, how did you, like, what? How did you know this? And so the reason why I don't put that as a forward-facing thing in my bio or in the way that I describe my work is because once again, many people who have intuitive gifts, psychic gifts, they use those gifts to tell people things that they need to know. I don't do that. I use my gifts to ask people questions or travel into areas of their somatic system where information lies for them to be discovered. Because if I tell you, hey, Anna, I'm sensing this for your future, you should really do X, Y, and Z, that is totally different than me being like, what's the craziest thing you ever dreamed of when you were little? And I already know. They're like, this is really crazy, but da da
Mm-hmm.
da da da. And I'm like, oh,
Really?
yeah, because when it comes from within, there's a different potency behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, as a coach, as a teacher, as a psychic, right, when we take people's autonomy away, the way that I perceive the energy in the world right now, people maybe can't see my hands, but I'm shaking, right? There's a shakiness. There's a lack of personal empowerment that is creating all of these negative side effects and all of this swirl. And when we can reclaim our power and bring it into our own central channel, we do not need anyone other than community. Support, love. That is just a human need. We need community. We need support. We need mentors. We need guides, but we really don't need as much advice. We don't need as many influencers. We don't need as many experts or books. We don't need all of that. We need to trust ourselves more. And so that will always be my goal is not for you to trust me, not for me to become the source of where you're going. Oh, I'm feeling lost. I need her to tell me what to do, but rather a way that I can help bring people to the question or bring people to the area of stuckness
Mm-hmm.
that then they can unpack for themselves. Because when you do it for yourself, it's like, like in Super Mario, you get a mushroom, bloop, bloop, bloop. You're like, you grow bigger. And so many of my clients, after working with me, without it being a stated goal of our work together, they become more intuitive because I'm like, you said that. You knew that. You told me that 2 sessions ago, and look at here we are. And they're like, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. I am intuitive. I'm like, yeah, you are. You know, it's just about building those muscles and building that trust that intuition is a muscle. Psychic gifts
Mm-hmm.
are a muscle. I don't think, well, I will say, I've had many, 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 many lives. I'm a very old soul, and I know everybody says that, but um, I do think that those gifts get better with each lifetime. Like you can get further as you are an older soul, but I don't believe that there is a single human being who does not possess some form of intuitive or psychic capabilities that they could develop and improve upon.
That would also be my guess that everyone is psychic on some level, but most people don't know about it because
Yeah.
ultimately it's just the connection between you and self. Like it's just your intuition, it's your sensitive perception of your reality. And
Yeah.
since we are so fast right now, we are just reacting to information rather than perceiving the information, like the
Hmm.
reality of the information. We are busy with reaction, with
Yeah.
narratives, with stories, so we don't see things for what they are, and therefore we don't perceive them. So we shut our sensitivity down, or we are
Yeah.
distracted from our ability to perceive through the reaction that we are putting out. And we're
Yeah.
distracted from these gifts, which are actually just higher sense, it's or deeper senses, or however
Yeah.
I should
Yeah.
better call them. Like it's the same. It's like you have five physical senses, and maybe they are extended, maybe they are more. But if you're not even
Hmm.
focused on the ones you have, you don't have the capability of perceiving more.
Yeah. And I have a client who's stepping into a new era. She's really deepening her spiritual path. She's personally working with Kabbalah. And, I said to her, the only way that I didn't say the only way you screw this up, but the only way that you can really steer yourself wrong is if you let other people's perception of how you're moving through the world and the choices that you are making impact what you know to be true. When you are tapped into your truth and making choices from that place, other people are going to tell you, oh, that's not the right choice. You should do this. Oh no, I know somebody else who tried that. It didn't work, right? People are going to give you these other takes on what you should be doing. And that's the thing about intuitive guidance. It is not always going to make sense for other people because it's not for other people.
People.
My path is not necessarily the path that's going to work or align for someone else because they are not me, and the same is true for them.
Hmm.
And so you can't commit to living an intuitively guided life unless you are willing to silence the court of public opinion. Otherwise, you will get knocked off course. You will doubt what you're hearing and what you're experiencing, and you will deviate in ways that could be fixable, right? You might deviate and come right back, right? But you might deviate in ways that are so fundamental and pronounced that you are really led off course.
Hmm.
And I know I started my life very off course from who I was meant to be and what I was meant to do. And I've unpacked all the traumatic reasons why and all of that. But I am in a stage of my life now where most of the good quote unquote business advice that I'm very aware of, I was, VP at companies. I know all about business. I have actual business experience. I do not care about what anyone says, what anyone else is doing. I don't care. I have a girl that's working for me now, helping me build some things because I'm launching a membership community in a couple of weeks. And she's like, what about this? I saw this person do that. I'm like, I don't care. This is a conversation between me and God. And if it's meant to work, it's going to work in integrity with what I'm experiencing. And now, once again, I can do that now because I'm in a place where I'm not going to like end up on the streets because I, didn't take business advice. And so there's a level of trust in my system that I've built over time. I'm not saying that you can go from completely out of trust to like locked in. Some people do. Some people have those like, you know, overnight spiritual awakenings and they go from complete disconnection to like tapped into source and just like boom. It didn't happen like that for me. It was a slow process over time. But now that I'm there, it's like, why would I question ultimate truth because some chick wrote a book about how to launch it,
Yeah,
like,
I know, yeah.
you know, and I feel that way about myself. If you're getting messages from God, don't ask me what to do. I'll help you how to translate and how to maybe operationalize the messages that you're receiving. But please do not listen to me over what you are intuitively receiving because that's your ultimate truth.
Right. Oh my God, there was a channeler, but I forgot her name. I think it's one of the first ones who ever wrote a book. And she had an assistant, and one night I think she heard voices or something, and then she talked to her assistant. I hope I'm getting the story right now, but she was like, I think I'm hearing voices, like, am I crazy? And the other person said basically, well, let's hear what they're saying and then we will decide.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing I want to say about intuition. So a little over 2 years ago, I moved from New York City, where I lived for 21 years, to 21 acres in the woods. I'm surrounded by state park land, so I'm very much in nature. So I have a lot of time to be in the space of silence, to be in the space of aloneness and emptiness. And I had a friend come to my house and she was just like sitting on the porch with me and she's like, I feel like I took a lot of mushrooms. Like I feel totally different here. And I said, that is our natural state. My shamanic teacher says that like the natural human state without all the technology and out all the distractions, it's like I think he said like zero point 0.5 milligram, like some amount that's like not a microdose, more than a microdose is
Mhm.
like how perceptive our systems are. If we were to go like camping for a week in a state park and just be in with no technology, we would be so much more tapped
Mhm.
in a way that modern humans assume you have to take psychedelics to get to. It's like, am I crazy? No, like this is normal. This is normal. People have been hearing voices. Like what gets me is like people read the Bible. It's all about hearing voices. If people didn't hear voices, there would be no
The Bible.
Bible. Hello? But people that hear voices are crazy. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where if we want this life, we have to be willing to do the things that allow us to live this life, and then we can't make ourselves wrong for it. We can't be like, "Oh, that's crazy." No, it's not.
No,
It's God
yeah.
speaking through you. What's less crazy than that?
Right, yeah, and there was also this guru. I'm not sure if it was Ram Dass, like one famous guru, and they they made an experiment with him. So he would have to take a bunch of different psychedelics and drugs and whatever that are like mind altering and perception widening. So this guru would take all that stuff, and what happened was nothing. So
Hmm.
nothing changed. He was just the same dude,
Yeah.
and he would say
Yeah.
the same things and feel the same and react the
Yeah.
same. So all that stuff, I don't know if it had an effect on him internally, but there was
Hmm.
no difference like on the observer from the observer's perspective, and even he himself was like,
Yeah.
yeah, hmm,
Yeah,
okay, okay,
yeah, yeah. It was Ram Dass's guru,
yeah.
Ram Dass's teacher, Guruji. And the thing about Ram Dass, he was like a big psychedelic proponent, and then he gave it up at a certain point and realized that he could get to the same places through prayer, through meditation, through just, connection. I am not for or against psychedelics. I think that they can be really additive. I think they can also become a crutch for people. And I know what's possible through other spiritual tools and other spiritual practices. And so that's always going to be my first recommendation. We live in a world that is obsessed with shortcuts.
Mhm.
And I'm a somatic practitioner. And when I started training in somatic experiencing, which is a 3-year training and certification program, it's a very robust training. The first weekend was so slow and subtle that I was crawling out of my skin. I was like, oh my God, this is so boring. Oh my God, get to the good part. Get to the whatever part. And over the course of the 3 years, I watched myself settle into a space of where I can just sit and make eye contact. Nothing needs to happen. I can be patient. I can move slowly, um, which was not who I was
Mhm.
when I started that training. And they say that the reason why that training is so long is not just to learn the information and practice on, test students or patients, but so that your own nervous system can get to a place where you have the capacity to be with other people. And it's like, this is why, like, when you're doing this kind of work, you do want people that have, to some degree, walked the slow path.
Mhm.
Um, I had a friend say to me, Amanda, I wish I'd met you 10 years ago when I was starting my business. I said, honey, you wouldn't have gotten me 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was a hot mess, you know? So, like, evolution, it's slow. And then eventually one day you'll look back and be like, wow, I don't even recognize myself in a good way, right?
Yeah, definitely happened to me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would it be a safe thing to say that Earth is currently undergoing a burnout state in its
Mm,
existence?
1000%. 1000%. And, I recently completed a training with a woman named Joanna Macy, who is an eco spiritual teacher. She has a body of work called The Work That Reconnects, that is basically helping humans remain in a state of active hope during times of collapse. So she was very ahead of her time, was an early activist in climate justice, like kind of watching climate change happen. And, as I said, I'm a psychic. So when I got the ping to move to the woods, I had a real understanding that this era was approaching, that there was going to need to be this reckoning with of everything that we all wanted, this hyper consumerism, keeping up with the Kardashians, bigger, better, faster, facelifts, all of the stuff that our culture is like more, more, faster. Um, and we cannot sustain it. Everyone I talk to is like, I'm so addicted to my phone. I want to throw my phone out the window. I'm so overloaded with information. I'm so angry about this. I'm so angry about that. I'm exhausted. I'm not making enough money, right? Everyone is stretched like that rubber band, right?
Hmm.
We are that rubber band stretched to the limits. And when you look at from an ecological standpoint, the climate change, the storms, the fires, right? It's all getting more and more intense. And so when I think about my work moving forward, what I really envision is like taking my hands and pressing people's feet to the earth, making them pause, allowing them to feel not only the human energy coming from my hands, but the energy rising up through the earth, and to realize it is not complicated what we need to do. It is actually so simple that it's going to bore you to tears initially until you realize that what we need to do is sit still, remember what we care about, and then move from that place. Because if we don't, if we stay in frenzy mode, it's like we're digging a million little shallow holes that are going to do nothing. Um, Most human beings, I believe, all human beings have an inherent goodness, an inherent desire to live, for others to live and to flourish. And all this other stuff gets in the way. And we can get so clouded and propagandized and distracted and riled up. And so there is nothing more that we need. We need things to be stripped away. So much stripping, editing, reducing, eliminating, returning, like so much returning. And this burnout that we are experiencing individually and collectively is going to require us to believe that what we do does make an impact, even if it's small. If we are like, and I hear this all the time, I only have X amount of followers, only this. It's like, bro, if you can get two kids in your neighborhood to like not join a gang, or one lady in your Bible study to not become, an alt-right Christian nationalist, whatever, like we do not need to make Like, we don't need to have huge audiences to make a really big impact on the world. If we all think that we are too small to make a difference, nothing's happening and we're
Yeah.
screwed. So it really is this reclaiming, right, of our power and believing that that power is making an impact through, the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect was an Instagram trend a little while ago. You remember that?
Mhm.
Oh, my butterfly effect is do, 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 do. Well, you know what? I want
Mhm.
my butterfly effect to be kindness, love, non-judgment, peace, right? Like make your butterfly effect something better than like I introduced my friend to her fiance and then he ended up being my cousin's fiance. I don't know. Like we can use our power for good and we quite frankly we have to.
Mhm. Beautiful. I thank you so much. Oh my God, you're extremely inspiring.
This
Thank
was such
you.
a fun conversation. Thank you for having me.
Well, absolutely. Come back anytime.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
How can people reach you? Through the website if they want to book a coaching?
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know when this is coming out, but I am pretty much full of one-to-one coaching clients. You can find me on Instagram at Amanda Baudier, my first name and last name. And as I mentioned, I am launching a membership community this fall that is what you could consider a church alternative. So we gather live on Zoom every Sunday night. We refill our cups. We get inspired for the week ahead. There will be somatic work. There will be spiritual work. There will be breath work. There will be community coaching. It's going to be $77 a month, so really accessible for most people. And I really want to remind people how simple it is to come home to self. And so we'll meet live every Sunday night. And
Great.
that's the best way to work with me.
Yeah, I will link all the details in
Great.
the description of this video and we'll
Perfect.
let you know when the episode is out. It will come out on YouTube and on Spotify.
Amazing.
Yay. Yeah, and we will do that again. That'll be
Yes.
awesome.
Amazing. It was so lovely to meet you and connect with you. And I appreciate you for letting me have this platform.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
being here. Talk to you
Yes.
soon.
Thank you. All right.
Have
Have a great day.
you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.